Well, this is the Reverend Ian Howard. I'm standing outside Brize Meadow, the new development outside Brize Norton, between Brize Norton and Carterton, where 700 homes are being built over the next 10 years. I think they've built about 70 so far. And my theme for today is the best of the old and the best of the new. And of course, in these changing times, which are going to be life-changing for so many of us, like 9/11 about 20 years ago, some things won't change, or they're going to be very similar. People are going to be still trying to rent flats and to buy homes of different prices. And those things will stay the same, although the corona crisis may have taught us that people might need more help in renting flats and more help in buying homes. So that's something to be borne in mind. Now, we've had some good news today. We've had some good news that the testing is being increased from 10,000 to 100,000. They're getting more PPEs, that's personal protective equipment, through. And there are more companies all over the UK getting involved in that process of doing testing and producing CPAP machines, those breathing machines that help you breathe before you need a ventilator. And of course, more companies everywhere producing ventilators. It was great last night to see the clapping that's taking place everywhere. We had our clapping as well, not only for the NHS workers and the carers, but for all key workers. We had the dustmen here this morning, and we just are so grateful for all those people who come around and keep life going. And of course, we're also grateful for the coronavirus groups and the local authority groups and community hubs all working together. And we just need to be careful for the con people, the con men and con women who sadly are also there from time to time. I think that the key thing that differentiates them from the rest is that they're usually asking for some sort of money up front. So if we have in any way suspicion that somebody is not actually genuine, we need to check it out with our local coronavirus group or with the police. Because although I would say the majority of people are doing a wonderful job and are being so helpful, there are just a few rogues out there. And it's good to hear just now on the news that pupils will be awarded GCSE and A-level results on the strength of their teachers' assessments. I've been a teacher now for over 30 years, and I think that's a very good decision. And the exam boards, we understand, are asking us to give grades, to put our candidates in rank order, and then they will use their usual moderation, which is looking at all the schools in the whole country which do their exam board and try to make sure that the results they're getting from a particular school are sort of falling between the normal boundaries. You know, we could underestimate grades, and that wouldn't be fair on our students, and then they'll pull them up. And if we overestimate, they'll pull them down a little bit, but they'll try and make sure they're as fair as possible. And also, wonderfully good news for pupils is that when you get those certificates, they won't show that in any way you were the victim of the coronavirus. They'll just be like anybody else's GCSE and A-level certificates, which will be something you can show in future to show that you got those grades in those subjects. So I'm coming back to my theme of the best of the old and the best of the new. Another thing that is not really going to change that much is that we're going to have our own routines, aren't we, for getting up and for having breakfast and having our morning drink and our afternoon tea and our evening meal and doing other things like that. And we're finding our new routine in the corona crisis, and we'll find a new routine or an old routine after the corona crisis. But then I think there are about 7 things that really might change, and I just share these with you that have been going through my mind, and perhaps this is of some help to you. It seems to me, firstly, that we have at the moment more appreciation of others, appreciation of the care workers, the NHS, the key workers. The fact that people are going out on their doorsteps and clapping their hands and banging their saucepan lids show that there is a growing or a returning mutual respect for everything else that's being done by people in our community and over the country. The second point is working together. Yes, of course, it's good and healthy to have competition, and our society thrives on it, but sometimes perhaps we don't work together enough. And one of the things we have rediscovered in the corona crisis, as I'm sure they discovered in the First and Second World Wars, is that communities can work together more. So let's try and work together to more after the corona crisis. The third thing, which is striking to me at this time, is more help for those in need. We've been thinking, or the government's been thinking on our behalf of helping those people in their jobs, the self-employed, the banks, the businesses. And of course there are, at the moment, still loopholes, but they are trying their best to plug those gaps. And I think it's good that we're realizing as a society that a lot of people need a lot of help, whether it's, the self-employed who are doing very well, but who may not be doing so well if they lose everything, or the homeless out on our streets. We need to be doing more to tackle this. Fourthly, I think it's great that we seem to be now moving into a new mode of not so much the I, but the we, as actually Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said recently. We are looking after one another more, our neighbors, our families, our friends. We're helping them with shopping. And again, as I say, let's all make sure that we're safe when we hand over that shopping, that we're not contaminating a bag or some food by something on our hands. We've washed our hands, and let's make sure that we're helping our neighbors to discern between all the good guys who are out there and the one or two crooks who are also out there. So let's just make sure we can do that. The next thing, number 5, is I think there's more trust. Now, I grew up in an age, in the 50s, 60s and 70s where perhaps we trusted some people too much. I have to admit that. And there were lots of things that sadly happened, and we're very, very sad about that now. But we've almost moved to the other extreme now, where everybody has to be checked to such an extent, and you can't share this and you can't share that, and you can't share your photo and you can't share your address or telephone number. We're almost got to the point where we don't trust people enough. So let's try and come out of this corona crisis trying to discern with wisdom a little more who are the people we can trust, and let's trust them, and who are the people we can't trust, and let's be very careful, as we've learnt to be in more recent years. Number 6 is, I think, more people have discovered that they can work from home. Now, this could have a really interesting impact on our whole work situation. And I think the most important thing that's in my mind with all of this is we've got to be always bearing in mind the people who might lose their jobs through all this. We have got to, as a society, if we change again and have a sort of third revolution, we've had the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century and so on, the technological revolution now, if we have another revolution in the way we organize ourselves now, we've got to make sure that people don't fall through the net. If people lose their jobs, in the air industry or in any industry, any business, we can't just say tough. We've got to see what we can do to help them and retrain and find new jobs and so on. We just can't leave people out there without any help. And the 7th point I want to make is it seems to me that we are now traveling less. Now, I'm a person who loves travel. I love going on an occasional flight, by train, by car. I'm trying to get back going on a bike. I love travel, but perhaps we've been traveling too much. And the problems we have with pollution and with global warming are, to some extent, the result of us traveling too much. So again, it's something we need to look at. And when we come out of this, we've got to be very, very mindful of all those workers, whether it's Thomas Cook or British Airways or Flybe. People are losing their jobs as a result of this. We can't just leave them stranded. We've got to say, well, yes, if we do need less flights, or we do need more railways and less people on the roads and less people using their car, we've got to find a way which works for everybody and which is fair and just. So we've got a lot more time to reflect at the moment, and we're much more conscious, I think, of our decisions and our choices. I was talking to my son last night, and he was pointing out to me an amazing story of a man called Anthony Ray Hinton and his lawyer, Brian Stevenson. And I just encourage you to look at that on YouTube if you want to. That's Anthony Ray Hinton and Brian Stevenson. And in short, this was a man who was in prison for 30 years because there was a miscarriage of justice. He didn't commit the crime. It was fully proved in the end, and he came out. And I mention him now because he immediately noticed 2 things which we might not notice. First of all, he noticed that everybody was rushing around. Everybody was rushing. And then there was the second thing he noticed that I was listening to last night was the tremendous advance in technology, mobile phones and so on. Sat-navs, it makes you laugh when you hear it, but it's very understandable. He said he suddenly heard this voice in the car. Who was this lady? Who was this lady talking in the car? Didn't know about sat-navs and so on. So I'm very grateful. I thank God for all the innovations in modern technology. But sometimes we're doing some things too fast. When I grew up, I think we had emails. This was before the internet and so on, and we had letters. And if we wrote a letter and we thought we'd written something stupid, we had the time and the space to tear it up and start again. And it took 2 or 3 days to get to person, and then it took 2 or 3 days to get back. Now, I'm not saying we should turn back the clock Thank God, we now can have instantaneous communication. I was 10 years old in 1967 when the first international broadcast went from this country. It was a 19-country event called One World, I think, or Our World, where people were broadcasting for the first time to 400 million people across the world, and broadcasts were reaching them instantaneously. And the Beatles were our contribution, and they played the song. It was in 1967. I was 10. All you need is love, which is a very, very good message for us all to ponder on. The next thing we've got to, I think, ponder on is what's sustainable. And it's not just in the recycling of waste or climate change or fossil fuels. We've got to think about those things that can't be measured. Are we sustaining happiness? Are we sustaining love? Are we sustaining hope? Are we sustaining places of national and natural beauty? Another area we've got to be careful about is what is ethical. Now, what is right? What is acceptable? It's marvelous how science can do so many things now, and that's fantastic. But because we can do so many things now, we have to stop and think. We have to stop and pause and think, are some of the things which we can now do actually good for us? I mean, for example, we can, when things are running normally, prolong life almost indefinitely. I'm not in any way arguing for people's lives to be shortened in any way, but if somebody's life has been prolonged and prolonged and prolonged and prolonged, that might be right, but we've got to ask ourselves, all of us, not just the doctors, then let's not leave it all to them, the hard questions of if it's technically and scientifically possible, does it still make it right? Is it ethically right? So I thank God, for the internet, for mobiles and technology, but we've just got to be careful it doesn't go too far. I mean, it's good to hear today on the news that Google have released this data, which is not personalized, but can tell the government how many people are going out and how many people are staying in, how many people are going shopping, because it's what they know from our mobile phones. But then perhaps we've heard in other countries how this information is being used to track people on every train and every bus and so on. And so they can now tell people in certain countries, be careful, your friend has coronavirus and you were on a bus with him 2 weeks ago. So we've got to be very careful in data protection. And then, of course, there's mental health, which is so important, physical health, which is so important, emotional health, which is so important. But what about spiritual health? I was a trainee chaplain in my training in a national health hospital, and my senior chaplain said, remember that not everyone is religious, but everyone is spiritual. And there's been a tremendous rediscovery of spirituality at this time. And let's not sell people short by telling them that they're just a mind or just a body or they've just got feelings. There's also this opportunity to have a spiritual development and to have spirituality. Now, when I grew up, the traditional British values were, don't lie, don't cheat in any way, don't cheat on your partner either, don't steal, don't murder, treat others as you would like them to as you would like to be treated yourself. Think about others as well as yourself. Take a break at the weekend, you need it. Be thankful people, be positive people, and so on. Now, it comes as a shock to a lot of people. I think it probably came as a shock to me that so many of those values are found in the great religions of the world, and certainly they're found in the Bible. And a lot of people don't realize where all these values are coming from. And I just want to encourage people in this time of the coronavirus to do a bit of exploring. Find out whether your spiritual side is being as developed as your body and your mind and your emotions, all of which are important. One staggering statistic today from global statistics is 2 out of 3 people globally have a religious worldview. They believe in God or gods in some sort of way. And 1/3 of those, that's about 2.3 billion, are Christians. And it's just extraordinary. You wouldn't think that in this country where possibly only 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 people go to church. But there are Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, and many other people of faith who are leading a daily life. And I believe that together we may have something we've discovered which we can share with everybody else. And so that's the first thing. The other thing related to that, of course, is prayer, because whatever faith you belong to, there is some sort of communication with the divine. And although I applaud and I thank God for all the peaceful protests I see around the globe today, a lot of people just don't seem to realize there might be another option. There might be a way of somehow connecting with a higher power who wants the very best for us, whom I certainly call God, and who wants to uphold us and give us comfort and hope and purpose and guidance, and that he is there. Now, when I was 21, which is a long time ago, it was in 1978, I remember sitting in my upstairs room thinking, I don't know whether there's a God or not. How can I even pray a prayer to someone I don't know if they even exist? So I came up with these words. I said, God, if you're there, please show me. And now, 41 years later, I can say, I've got a dog collar and I'm a co-leader here of 2 churches, that I believe God has shown me very clearly through things I've read, through things I've heard, through people I've met, and through experiences I've had, that he really is there, and he really does love us, and he does really care about us, and he wants to have that relationship with all of us. Now, I've got a song here today, and now we've got an added license. I can sing this because it's still in copyright. This was written by Sidney Carter, who also wrote Lord of the Dance and When I Needed a Neighbor. He lived from 1915 to 2004, and this is called One More Step, and it's all about this idea. You can almost have this picture of a child walking with its parent, or if we're older, of a friend walking with an older friend who's keeping an eye on us and cares for us. And this is a song about walking with God, and I just encourage you to meditate on that thought or that possibility as you hear this. It goes like this. One more step along the world I go, one more step along the world I go, from the old things to the new. Keep me traveling along with you, and it's from the old I travel to the new. Keep me traveling along with you. Round the corners of the world I turn, more and more about the world I learn, and the new things that I see, you'll be looking at along with me, and it's from the old I travel to the new. Keep me traveling along with you, as I travel through the bad and good. Keep me traveling the way I should, where I see no way to go. You'll be telling me the way I know, and it's from the old I travel to the new. Keep me traveling along with you. Give me courage when the world is rough. Keep me loving though the world is tough. Leap and sing in all I do. Keep me traveling along with you, and it's from the old I travel to the new. Keep me traveling along with you. You are older than the world can be. You are younger than the life in me, ever old and ever new. Keep me traveling along with you, and it's from the old I travel to the new. Keep me traveling along with you. I think in all these areas we need great wisdom. It's not so much what we're doing, although that is a question, it's also how we're doing it. And all the time at the moment we're being faced with decisions and choices. And let's do everything we can. Let's pray if we believe that helps. Let's do everything we can to make wise choices and not just go along with the crowd, but to make the right choices. I'm going to close as usual with the Lord's Prayer, which I'm going to say fairly slowly. And I encourage you to join in whatever language you have. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. So it's goodbye from me now on the 3rd of April. 3rd of April 2020. Take care, God bless, and stay safe.